Hi, Math 1. This is the study team test from Appendix A. I'm going to go through my solutions. This is available as a PDF file if you'd just like to download and look at the answers already. Number 1 says solve each equation for the given variable. Remember to check your solutions. So let's go ahead and look at question A. A is a proportion. In fact, all three of these are proportions. That means that I have ratios that are equal to each other. If I have proportions, one thing that I can do is I can consider the product of the fact that the cross products are equal. So for example, on the first diagonal here, I have a 3 times an x, and that equals the other diagonal, which is 4 times 2, or 8. So if I divide both sides by 3, I get that x is 8/3. Now if I go ahead and check that, of course I start with the word check, and I say if x is 8/3, the question is 3/4, is that the same as 2 divided by 8/3? So I've got this compound fraction. The numerator is just a whole number and the denominator is a fraction. If I want to simplify that, I typically take that and I turn it into a multiplication problem. So I write my numerator, 2/1, times the reciprocal of my denominator, 3/8. That becomes 6/8, and if I reduce 6/8, it is, not 4, it is 3/4. So indeed, I do have 3/4 is equal to 3/4, so it definitely checks. So the answer for A is 8/3. You can write that as a mixed number if you want, or a decimal. I prefer improper fractions. I think they're easier to look at and deal with. Okay, in B, I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to go ahead and look at my cross products. So this diagonal should be equal to this diagonal. On the first diagonal there, I've got y times 45, or 45y, and that should equal 3 times 30, which is 90. If I divide both sides of that by 45, I get that y is equal to 2. So that's a pretty simple check, right? Check if y is 2, not question mark 2, the question is 3/45, is that the same as 2/30? Well, on this first one, right, both of those can be divided by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 45 divided by 3 is 15. And on this one, there's a common factor of 2. If I divide both the numerator and denominator by 2, I get 1/15. These are indeed equal to each other. So y is 2 is my answer for B. And then finally, C looks a little different because this is the first time that I see a binomial in one of my parts, right? So one of the diagonals is, of course, -1 times 2. The other one is 1 times the quantity of m plus 2. So I write it like this: 1 times the quantity of m plus 2, and that equals -1 times 2, the other diagonal, which is a -2. Now, if I had a value other than 1, I'd be careful to distribute that and multiply each of these by that, but I don't. 1 times m is m, 1 times 2 is 2, so it's just m plus 2, and that equals -2. And then if I subtract 2 from both sides, I get that m has to equal the number -4. So again, my check, if m is -4, what I'm looking at here is m plus 2, which would be a -4 plus 2 over -1. Is that the same as 2/1? In my numerator on the left-hand side, I've got -4 plus 2, which is a -2 over -1. And is that the same as 2? Yeah, -2 divided by 1 is the number 2. Since 2 is equal to 2, it does check. So my answer for C is m is equal to 4. I'm sorry, it was -4. On question 2, we're asked to solve each equation below. For each equation below, solve for x, show all of your work. The instructions don't say to check, so it's not required that you show that. I do recommend that you think about whether or not your solution does work, though. So if I look at this equation, I'm going to begin by lots to do, lots I could choose. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. For me, that's what I'm going to take away. If I take away 4x's from both sides, on the one side I have 3x's left over, and then that's minus 3, and that equals 4x minus 4x is 0, so I just have a positive 3 over here. Next I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I have on one side 3x is equal to 6. And finally I'm going to divide both sides of this by 2. So I get that divide both sides by this 3. I'm anticipating the answer. So x is the number 2. And just a real quick check, 7 times 2 is 14. I've got 14 minus 3 on one side. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 3 is what I have on the other. 8 plus 3 is 11, and 14 minus 3 is 11. So it definitely checks. However, I didn't write, I wasn't all official because I didn't ask for it. So x is equal to 2 for 2a. And let's take a look at 2b. On 2b, I have the opportunity here to use the distributive property. So I'm going to multiply both the negative 2 and the negative x by 6. That would become negative 12 minus 6 times the variable x. On the other side, I've got a negative 5. I'm going to distribute that to the 2x and to the 4. So that gives me a negative 10x minus 20. Let's see, lots of things I could do. I'm going to go ahead and add 10x to both sides. Oops, 10x, not 10x to this side. I'm going to add 10x to that side. That gives me negative 12 plus 4x. When I combine negative 6 and 10, I have 4x. On the other side, that equals negative 20. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add 12 to both sides. That gives me that 4x is equal to, when I add 12 to negative 20, that gives me a negative 8. So x, when I divide both sides by 4, x is equal to negative 2. And I didn't show the check, but I recommend that you check it. Almost done. Last two questions on this page. Evaluate the expression 16 minus 2 to the third over 2 plus the quantity of, or 2 plus 2 times the quantity of 5 minus 2. So I see that I have 16 minus something. 2 to the third power is 8. So I have 16 minus 8. And in my denominator I have 2 plus 2 times 5 minus 2 is 3. So take this a step further. 16 minus 8 is 8. And then that's a 2 plus 6 in my denominator, which is equal to 8. So I end up with 8 over 8, which is 1. And it turns out B is the number 1. So my answer is B. The last question here, this has the same result of which of the following, choose all that apply. Let's see. Definitely not this. I know the answer is going to be a positive because I've got more positives than negatives. So it's not going to be A. And it's not going to be B. C is exactly the same, right? 37 plus negative 20 is the same thing as 37 minus 20. So it is C. But let me double check D. No, D, that would be negative 57. So it's not D either. So the correct answer is C.